Yeah, you said you live on just the other side of I-4. I got a little headache.
Yeah.
Thinking about that. I-4, man, is no joke.
None. That's why I don't like getting on it at all. We have everything we need around us without ever having to get on I-4.
Are you able to bypass I-4 to get over this way?
Did we bypass? Yes, we took the 528 pretty much straight down. So we're right at the 528. So we can start right there and bypass I-4 completely.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank God for 528.
And we come here all the time. So
when you bought the house, did you anticipate seeing the Disney fireworks every night?
So no, we knew that we could see it, but yeah, it wasn't like I wasn't excited by it, but I kind of like it now. It's convenient. I don't know, it's nice. Every night at 9 o'clock, it goes off and it goes for 18 minutes.
That's cool, man. It's a lot of fireworks.
It's a lot of fireworks.
So kids probably aren't as interested in 4th of July.
Maybe not. Maybe not. They get to see them every night. They're spoiled.
That's pretty great when you think about it.
No doubt. Well, thanks for coming down to join us in Melbourne today, man. We're stoked to have you.
I'm glad to be here. We love Melbourne too. We go boating out here all the time.
Really?
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Are you like beachside guy, or you mean on the Indian Atlantic? Is it?
We go on the Intracoastal quite a bit. And we just have a Freedom Boat Club membership, and so we pick one up. Like we went out yesterday. We're going out tomorrow. Just grab a pontoon, take the dogs, and find a sandbar and hang out.
That's awesome. So you go out do you head out to like the inlet? And
we do. We're down to Sebastian Inlet is really where we like to hang out the most. Nice. And some days I'll take the day and work out there by myself, just take a boat out by myself and get a lot more thinking time in. Some quality thinking time is good.
That's awesome. Yeah, we have my wife and I have a pontoon. We're actually about to sell it, but we have a pontoon and we keep it out at the Palm Bay Marina.
Nice.
And the reason we live all the way over here, over in Rockledge, but we keep it out here because when we go boating, we want to go out of the inlet. We want to go out that way.
Yep.
It's just nice boating.
I would never own a boat. I don't think so. We'll see. I don't want to haul it, clean it, maintain it. None of that. Just want to show up.
Yeah, good deal, man. Well, yeah, I thought, if you don't own it, I was about to challenge Matt to racing you with his boat.
Oh, I mean, it's a very nice boat, but I get passed a lot. It's got 115 horse on it, and I get passed a lot, and it's for a competitive person, it's kind of frustrating, But it is nice though. We have it at Palm Bay Marina, so I mean, you have to pay to keep it there, but I don't mess with it at all. I just call them and say, hey, can you put my boat in the water? And then they put it in. I gas it up and I leave and I drop it off. And it's
nice.
So if you're going to own a boat, in my opinion, unless you live on the river and you have access on the river, then, marina's the way to go.
Absolutely.
Just an opinion.
Well, Alex, man, I mean, it seems like you've been running 100 miles an hour. What have you been into and excited about recently?
There's a lot of things. So right now there's 4 organizations, or I guess 4 ventures that I'm actively working on. We obviously have Forecastable, which you guys are very familiar with, enterprise B2B co-selling, helping, partner teams, better co-sell, helping sales teams better co-sell with their partners, and work deals together. That business is going really well in terms of we're doing a lot of education. We're doing this really cool co-sell activation workshop now that I think is driving the lion's share of our pipeline and getting people to convert. And so
nice.
Really happy with where that's heading. We're kind of owning the co-sell conversation, I would say industry-wide right now. We are the thought leaders when it comes to co-selling. And so that business is coming to fruition really nicely.
Give us by the way, just on that note, give us like a co-selling scenario. Like maybe it's not a real one. Maybe you can't disclose
I have a million real ones. I could talk co-selling all day. Yeah.
Give us a co-selling, the most interesting co-selling scenario.
I mean, the most common co-selling scenario, it's like, so co-selling is all about when 2 sales teams come together to jointly win business. So both sales organizations, both partner organizations have to have a deal on the table and skin in the game. And so as an example, let's say you're going to go buy, you're a B2B organization, you're going to go buy a marketing automation product. You're evaluating Marketo as a solution for marketing automation. So you might be dealing with Marketo as a SaaS vendor, and that SaaS vendor might bring in an implementation partner like Accenture or Deloitte or one of those services organizations to kind of be that trusted advisor and to kind of help scope what the services work. And you might even have a third co-selling partner who could be, let's say, the buyer has a requirement for conversational AI as part of their marketing journey. And so Marketo doesn't do that. So they're going to bring in, Drift or some other technology that provides that. So now you've got 3 organizations that are combining their solutions to go sell this one package solution to the buyer. And now sales reps are typically very inwardly focused on their own deals. So you got the Marketo rep who's like, hey, I'm closing my deal on October 15th. And you got the Drift rep internally and be like, oh, I'm closing mine on November 12th. And like the services person is like, I'm closing in December. And so like they're typically very misaligned. And so we have, frameworks and processes and technology that allows to kind of rope all of that stuff in and kind of tightly align all of those co-selling partners around a plan so they're marching to the same beat.
How often does co-selling happen? Because I know like your average consumer isn't thinking about, I wonder if they're ever going to come up with a solution for co-selling. You know what I mean?
So, they don't.
Right. So I mean, just for those people that don't understand this, I think it's critical what you're doing, but B, like, how prevalent is that? How normal is this co-selling thing in general?
It's very normal in the B2B world. It's not as recognized in the consumer world. As an example, just for those who may not understand co-selling, and we can break it down to like a more everyday type of situation. Let's say you're going to buy a car at a car dealership, and you're buying this car, and that sales rep says, "Hey, would you like the in headrest video, right?" And that's an option. Now that in headrest video is maybe provided. That may be provided from a different third-party organization, and now she has to call that rep, and that sales rep has to get on there and talk to you about the features and things like that. Then they're co-selling because you need to involve that other sales organization to kind of help sell the product. But if she's just reselling it, then that's all she's doing is reselling. They're not co-selling. Now, let's say the same sales rep was selling a fleet of vehicles, and I'm the buyer, and I want to then, I'm interested in GPS tracking, and that's not provided by this car dealership. So they're going to bring in some GPS tracking company to go educate me and answer questions. That is a co-selling relationship because both deals are now tied to they're both kind of tied at the hip now.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. So really, y'all streamlining that is better for the customer. It's better for you as a rep, like a sales, or for your salespeople, both. I mean,
correct. It's a better buying experience. At the end of the day, it's like all these buyers know they need to buy from multiple vendors, and when you have to buy from multiple vendors to get to the whole solution that you desire. Like running independent sales cycles with each vendor is like grueling. It's just nasty, and you don't want to be in it. You end up making really bad decisions along the way because you get tired of running these cycles. So having a set of vendors that are working together in a really tightly aligned fashion just delivers a better buying experience, and not only results in shorter sales cycles, but they end up spending more too because they have a higher confidence in the deal. The buyer does.
Something I've always been impressed about with you, and this is gonna sound like a goofy way to say it, but I'm goofy, so here we go. I feel like at any moment, like I could, and I wouldn't because you're a very large man, but but I could push a button on you, and you're ready. Like it's like everything that you know and that you believe in is ready to come out in a beautifully articulated way.
Thank you.
It's just, and it's. I'm fascinated by it.
Thank you.
I'm absolutely fascinated by it. We've had multiple conversations, and every time you show up and you speak in front of our group, we did that the panel a couple months ago, and then you would come out and pitch to to the group as well. We're going to reorganize another one of those and have you come out, people walk away and they're like, man, that guy really speaks well.
Well, thank you.
So my question is it hard for you to turn your brain off?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
It's 24/7. Like it is. I mean, it is something that I actively struggle with. I mean, at night, it's like turning your brain off and like trying to figure things out and just like become a normal human being for a few hours to like go spend time with your family.
And not like a selling machine,
Yeah, it's like it's hard to turn it off. You've got to be very intentional about it. And so like I have 2 cell phones, as one of the mechanisms for it. So I have a personal cell phone, I have a work cell phone. Now my personal cell phone has all of my work apps on it. So like if I want to access Slack or I want to get on LinkedIn, I can, but it has all notifications turned off. So I won't get the buzzes or the dings and things like that. And I leave my work cell phone in my office most nights. and let that thing ding away by itself.
That's I started doing that.
Recent Matt strategy too.
Good. It's healthy.
I recently started doing that. I'm still struggling a little bit. Like it's got a charge. I need to take it upstairs, and then sometimes I keep it on longer than I should. So I'm still struggling with finding my balance with it. But yeah, no, I get it.
Apparently, there are settings on the iPhone where you can like turn everything grayscale. Like I've been seeing that strategy like thrown around too, where people like, hey, if you need to disconnect, setting certain hours where if it's on the weekend or whatever, that you just don't have that same kind of like dopaminergic reaction from the colors, from the notifications, like, you know. I don't know. That's probably going to become more and more like you all are doing it now, but that's going to become more and more necessary for everyone as we get more interconnected digitally.
It is. It can. I've been through a couple of burnouts in my career, and there was one burnout I went through in particular where I would hear a buzz and I would just be like, like I don't want to, like, it would give me angst and like instantly.
I want to know that story. Like, so what particular burnout was that?
So that one was, that one was tough. So we went through, so I started Forecastable and with my co-founders in January of 2018. I was at the time, my day job was Marketo. So Marketo was subsequently acquired by Adobe, and I knew I couldn't like build a software company while being employed by Adobe. They sent out some conflict of interest agreements, to kind of everybody. And so I was like, okay, well, now that, Adobe's acquired the Marketo ecosystem, I'm sure there's a couple of small like service providers out there that specialize in Marketo that are going to try and like flip their companies here soon to like an Accenture or a Deloitte. And so I wanted to go find a place where I could go work while building Forecastable that would allow me to like grow the revenue and flip the company. And we happened to find one. And so I went and worked for that services organization. The charge was to double revenue and flip the company in 2 years. And I got a 1% equity stake for every $1 million in top line revenue that we produced, like above and beyond their current production. So it was a really good deal for me. And I started there in June of 2019. Now come June of 2020, like COVID, like
right.
Nastiness. We had 63% of our forecast come to a screeching halt, right? And I'm paid for like above and beyond. Like my real earnings come from above and beyond prior year production. And so like, we were doing probably $7 million when I joined, and then that we would have lost half the company. We almost had to terminate half the company in the summer of 2020. But we activated co-selling. Like we actually deployed Forecastable. We activated over 80 enterprise reps from Adobe, which ended up landing me my master agreement with Adobe at Forecastable.
Wow.
And before we knew it, we had those reps inside of Forecastable co-selling with the service organization I was working for. We recovered 100% of our lost forecast dollar for dollar that year. So we ended up going year over year flat at $7 million, but we saved from having to fire half the company.
That's awesome.
And then, of course, now going into year two, it's like all that strategy for co-selling ended up like we like overcorrected. So now all of a sudden we had more pipeline and more deals on the table come, let's say January of 2021 than we could possibly handle. We were like 3 months away. Like from when we closed the deal, it was like 3 months until we could actually do anything with the customer and kick them off. That was a big deal. And so I was trying to run Forecastable while managing all of that in this all of that growth, which of course now brought up escalation issues. So I was managing escalations because we couldn't deliver quickly. Like there was just a lot going on at that time. And then the founders of that business, that services business, we had a suitor at the table ready to acquire. And the founders are like, hey, we can't have you do this Forecastable thing anymore. I'm like, what? I'm like it's in my contract. The only reason I am here is because I get to build this Forecastable thing. I'm like, we can still see, like, you're going to sell the company any month now. And they're like, no, we think it'll end up being a distraction. We can't have you talking about it online anymore. I'm like, okay. I was burned out already. Like trying to, I was working 16 hours a day at that point.
Yeah, and they just come in and kill your dream essentially.
It's like, and then I'm staring down the barrel of, okay, I'm probably going to make about a $1.2 million payout when this thing flips, and it's going to flip soon. But I could kill the Forecastable business in the meantime. Like if I go down that path, and I went down the path of not killing the Forecastable business, and I gave up that payout. Like I could have bought my shares, I could have exercised my, I could have exercised my options, but I needed that cash for Forecastable. It was like it was between a rock and a hard place, and so I was like, all right, let's go. And I just left. I spent like 30 days on the couch in my robe playing video games because I was just burned out, and then went hard on Forecastable again.
What game though, Alex?
I was playing Rocket League most of the time.
Yes. It's an excellent game. Hey, pull that mic up to you just a little bit
sure.
more. What I love, or what's cool to hear, is that Forecastable didn't just come out of like a whiteboard session. I mean, it was a real sink or swim scenario that you developed that solution.
I've been through. There's nothing. I've been through everything. My partner and I've been through everything, top to bottom, like thick and thin. Like I'm not worried about being put in any type of negative situation because I've hit bottom. Like once you've been there, like you know what it's like, and it's like I can recover from it. It's not been an easy business to build. Like that was really hard at that time, and then of course later on that year. We're planning on going to market in January of 2022. And later on that year, I saw, like, we were selling sales tech at the time, in 2019. That's what Forecastable was. And then I saw later on that year, another company in the space raised a $76 million round led by Andreessen Horowitz, like, focused on co-selling. I'm like, okay, there's some money in this space. And another one raised $50 million, both at 100x top line, valuations, crazy times. And I was like, okay, let's not go to market on January 1st of 2022. Let's take everything that we built, bring it to the co-sell motion, and make it so anybody can kind of co-sell regardless of what CRM they may be running in the background. So we spent about a year, making that transition and that pivot. Launched that one in September of 2022, so last year. And then all of a sudden, down economy, and like all these partnerships pros are getting laid off. I'm like, what is going on? Like little doom and gloom, in December of last year. And then beginning of this year, now CFOs are making like massive cuts. They're like, hey, they're going to RevOps and they're saying, I want you to cut 30% of your tech spend right now. And we can be the saving grace there because now I can come in and say, look, I can replace that tool and this tool and that tool. Oh yeah, and you can co-sell with your partners. So like there's a real financial story there that we can tell in a down economy.
That's really cool.
Welcome to the Legacy Angel Network Venture Lounge, where nothing ventured is nothing changed. For Matt Helmenthaler, press 1. For member services, press 2. For real raw startup stories, press 3. For all other questions or concerns, please wait on the line in our
Good evening, everyone. I'm Matt Helmenthaler, and you're listening to Venture Lounge, after-hour conversations with founders and investors. These are the stories, insights, and conversations that you aren't going to find on the company website. Because the real lessons you learn in the startup world, the risks you take as an entrepreneur, the highs and the lows, the moments in your journey when no one else believes in you right before you break through, those are the moments that you just have to hear for yourself. So grab a drink and listen in to the men and women who are changing the world. Welcome to the Venture Lounge.
Alex, you're so compelling, man. We're just speeding right past the intro. Welcome back to Venture Lounge, everybody. Nothing venture, nothing changed. I'm Connoisseur, creative director here at Legacy Angel Network, and I'm joined on the couch today by our founder and co-host, Matt Helmenthaler. Matt, what's up?
Hello.
And introduce, how did you and Alex meet? You got to tell us that story.
How did we meet?
Lillian
Myers. That's right. So Lillian Myers, who was one of our previous guests,
right?
Very compelling podcast. A little shout out to Miss Lillian. Cheers to Lillian. Lillian, everybody. So she introed us. She is a huge Alex Buckles fan. Was then, is now. Yeah, you definitely got her sold, man. And she's like, Matt, you really got to look at this guy, this company. It's really, really cool. So you came in, you showed us kind of what you had going on. You sat down, I think, with Scott and I.
Yeah.
We immediately thought, man, this is really, really cool. I think we may have had one or two other people there too. And so we loved his passion about this particular company. He's a domain expert. So we're very confident in that piece, but then we're also very confident in him as a person. He's just a really rad dude. We like him a lot, and
Thank you.
And we'll get into some of his whys too. I love his why, and I'm all about that. If you can define someone's why, you can kind of determine kind of like what your journey could look like with that individual, and he's got a really cool why. So when we started doing this podcast, you were one of the names that had come up to make sure we get you on here. So
thanks. And a lot has happened on my why since we even last chatted. It's more interesting than Forecastable, without a doubt.
which we also want to get into that too.
100%.
Yeah. So Alex Buckles.
Alex, you got to give us just a little bit of background. You said you've been in Orlando for a while, but where'd you grow up, and how did your kind of entrepreneurial journey develop, first you as a person and then what you got into? Yeah.
Sure. So, I mean, I've been in Orlando since I was pretty much 9 years old. So I've been here for a long time. After I got out of the Marine Corps in 2005 and didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I just got into retail. I was like working at Radio Shack in the mall, selling cell phones. And then I was really good at that. And so I ended up selling cell phones across the street at the Sprint retail store. Didn't know it at the time, but I was really learning objection handling and upsell, cross-sell, and all kinds of, the hustle mentality there, which served me well in other areas of my career down the road. But,
what was the first phone you sold? I'm trying to think of what the model would have been.
This was back when the Razors had just come out.
And that's a nice
Razor, dude.
Sprint Nextel just merged while I was working there.
Man, if you didn't have a
Nextel,
Razor,
I had a Nextel.
Yeah, chirp, everybody wanted that chirp.
No, I had a Razor though. If you didn't have a Razor, you were nobody.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You were a loser if you didn't have a Razor.
Oh yeah. So I was selling cell phones there, and then I ended up, I ended up being like number 3 in the country or in like certain sales contests and stuff like that. I was just really good at it, and I wanted to get into professional selling. And I ended up speaking with my father, who's also the CEO of a software company. He's founded that, he's had it for 20 years, lifestyle business, sold it a couple years ago to a company in Paris. And I didn't know what he did for a living, really. I just had no idea. And I was like, hey, you need a sales guy. And he didn't have one. I was like, I'll take an enterprise AE position, basically. So I started out in 2007 as just a young green enterprise AE with, I was the only sales rep for the company, owned the whole territory.
Wow.
Learned a lot in that, working for a small business, you got to wear a lot of hats, right? And so I was like, hey, we needed a new website. Awesome. Let me go learn how to build that. We needed some help in customer support. So I'd eventually start closing deals, and then I would go and put on my project management hat and I'd go implement. So I learned a little bit about not overselling, right? And because you actually have to deliver on what you sell in the sales cycle. And then eventually I just kind of became an expert in that particular space, which was, surety bond underwriting, insurance product pretty much. And I eventually took over the product dev team. So I was running sales, I was running, project management and support. Then I was taking over the dev team and driving product vision. So really got that kind of, kind of wore a lot of hats and learned a lot through those 6 years.
Incredible, man. Yeah. So just being capable is kind of a curse, man. They just keep handing you stuff if you keep asking.
Oh yeah.
So what was that like working for Pops?
It was different, it was different. I learned a lot. It's like once you got to the point though, I hit a point where I was just on my own, where I could just do my own thing. And he realized it too. And he came out and said, okay, well, you're better than me at this. And so he had to learn kind of let go and say, Alex is going to go do his thing and, report back. And that worked out really well, over time. It wasn't easy at times, right? But we got through it. I don't really recommend working with family. It's like,
I know exactly what you mean.
Family and friends. I've done it several times now. It's never worked out nicely. There's always heartaches, and so I try to avoid it whenever possible.
That's funny, man. So this is my wife, Aubrey, behind the camera.
Scott's my brother-in-law.
Okay. We've broken all those rules, Alex.
We've broken them all.
But so far so good, man. It is a different thing. You just got to approach it differently, and
Oh yeah.
But did you have? Was it just you and your dad? Or did you have other siblings involved? Other siblings at all?
No, I'm the oldest of 5.
Wow.
The oldest of 5. So they were not involved in the business, but I was there for 6 years, and so that started in 2007. In 2009, I started getting that itch a little bit to I want to do my own thing, and I kind of wanted to figure this out. I was getting that entrepreneurial itch, and I'd go out and I would join local user groups, technical user groups. I remember going to these .NET Nuke user group meetings. I had no business being there, but I would go there and try to find really smart people that could do things that I couldn't do, and just learn from them and stuff like that. And then started doing a little website building, started charging money for that, and then started experimenting with things here and there. And over time, just ended up getting into SaaS. And so we built an insurance underwriting product at one point, a risk modeling product called SureCheck, which graduated into a company called the Bond Hub. We spent 3.5 years building that startup. We had customer at the table. We ended up in litigation over it from a previous employer. Just to give you one startup story that didn't work out, right? We spent 3.5 years doing it with a founding team. Put my blood, sweat, and tears on that thing. No different than Forecastable, same level of effort. Spent every penny I had, every penny I didn't have, in litigation over this stuff. And we spent 9 months in highly complex litigation. I had 3 kids in diapers. Like, it wasn't easy. It was really, really hard. And we ended up coming out on top in the end and had the freedom to go build the business. But I was so burned out and frankly just broke, and the team was tired at the time. I was like, we just couldn't do it. We just couldn't move forward with it. And I had my CTO at the time and kind of like freaked out and left. And like, you know, I had a couple of developers left, but I just didn't have the energy to manage it anymore. And so I took a break from that and like, you know, recovered financially, which is when I went to Marketo, financially recovered and, you know, blew it out of the water there almost purely out of necessity because I had spent every penny I had on the prior startup. And then I saw the opportunity in sales and I was like, man, there's no technology to help these sales reps work deals. And so I went back to the same founding team minus that CTO and said, you know, you want to go do it again? And we did. Yeah.
And to your point, sales related, another problem that I thought was interesting that you brought up that Forecastable solves is, you know, a lot of sales teams kind of get in the mentality, or if your only strategy as a salesperson or as a vendor is to find new customers through cold acquisition or ads or things like that. Like you're saying, kind of a death sentence as the ad space and online ad space gets more and more competitive. You need other solutions like co-selling.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. There's like that direct selling model. Like there are, the role of the salesperson today in B2B is going to drastically shift over the next few years. Like those reps that could just, you know, go to steak dinners and wine and dine and build that relationship and close that deal like a you know, Lone Ranger, like they can't do that anymore. Those reps that are kind of at their end of their careers, maybe another 3 years left, they don't have to learn anything new. They can keep doing that and kind of write out their careers and be done. But those that plan on staying in this, you know, for much longer, they've got to change their strategies, like starting today. There is no world that exists where you're not co-selling because selling products one-to-one just almost isn't sustainable anymore.
Well, let's talk about, I love just how candid you're being about just the ups and downs, burnout, and like everything that comes as a part of being a highly functional, successful individual like you are, man. You know, how do you like mentally get out of those situations? I mean, looking back at them, is there something that you learned or took away, or something you did rest-wise that helped you kind of take next steps back into another successful project?
I would say like it's, you know, you just can't give up. Like at the end of the day, like you can run out of money. I've run out of money a few times. Like you can run out of money like just fine. They say that's the one thing you can't do. No, that's not, I think that's untrue. Like the one thing is you just can't give up. Like you have to like have that, you have to understand your why. Like having your why helps quite a bit. You know, I think about my kids, right? That is something that, you know, gets me through it. And then a great support system too. Like, you know, my wife, without her, gosh, I don't know how I do it. Like it's unreal. Like that level of support. There were times where she'd come in and just like throw food in front of me in my office because I'd forget to eat, you know, and like stuff like that. So I would say just having your why, having a great support system, you know, managing your calendar and finding that downtime. Like for me, I figured out that boating was like my outlet. Like I didn't know that. I hadn't boated I've lived here since '93 and I've never really been boating. And I was like, and you know, as Orlando started getting more and more packed, I used to just go on drives, and now I can't go on drives anymore because the roads are too busy. And so I figured out on the water that like it's peaceful, and I can go out there and think, and like that helps me like center myself.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So how often do you get to go out there and do that? Do you schedule time every month where, hey, I'm disappearing for 5 hours? Peace out, and I mean, is that like the standard thing?
I was doing it weekly for a while. Like on Thursdays was my day. Like Thursdays, I'd go out there. You know, it's kind of a night. You know, I'd still have a couple of I block my Thursdays off. I'd intentionally let a couple of meetings in, like if I really wanted to, and I would just take them out from there. But it wouldn't be a full day of meetings. But it was every Thursday. Like right now, though, because I took on a couple of other ventures like along the way, like I just don't have the time right now, and so I'm trying to figure it out. You know, but I would like to get back to like a once a week. In every Thursday, because I have a more balanced work week. I mean, I work 7 days a week as it is, but that's intentional because I only put in a few hours on Saturday and Sunday. Like I'm up in the mornings anyway. I wake up naturally at like 4 a.m. like no matter what, even if I don't want to. And so I may as well get work done before the kids get up. And like, so I'll throw in, you know, 4 or 5 hours in the morning on Saturday and Sunday, which gives me the freedom to do what I want on Thursday. So like it all kind of balances out.
I think whatever it is you do, if it's boating or you just need something that you can like get into that flow state. You know, something that, Aubrey's big into CrossFit. She like can't check her phone when she's doing a snatch. You know what I mean?
Right,
you can't
yeah.
check like when you're on the water. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. There's something about that experience that kind of disconnects you from the digital world we're consumed by all the time. You know?
Yep. Absolutely. My wife calls it decompression time.
Yeah.
I need it at the end of every day to like switch gears because it's really hard for me to switch gears. And so I have to go do something mindless. So I'll go sit down and play a video game and put my phone off and like go play Rocket League for a little while for like 30, 40 minutes. And then I become like a normal human being again. And then I go interact with the family.
Nice, man.
Yeah, I play the little word, what's it called? Words with Friends.
Really?
I do that. None of them are actually my friends. But yeah, that's a little Scrabble.
It's a big thing down here in Florida, but like I started getting into the jiu-jitsu thing, and yeah, you can't check your phone when someone's trying to strangle you. It's like bad,
it's not. No.
Yeah, it's a bad idea.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
It's a bad idea. Yeah, for sure. So I want to talk about too, like you have a nonprofit thing that you have going on, and so much of what you're doing kind of pushes to this larger, I would say, even lifetime legacy type of vision.
Yep.
And every time you talk about it, I'm inspired. We're inspired. The people that are in the room are inspired. We actually had someone come up to us after the last event and say, "Yeah, I really want to meet that guy. I want to talk to him more." That was amazing. And So, would you kind of share some of that?
Sure. I can get on a soapbox here, so I'll try to keep it, relatively light. But in general, so the nonprofit organization is called Pathways for Autism, and in general, there's for folks that are on the spectrum, there's really not any services after the age of 21. It's like you hit 21, it's like, good luck, hopefully you got a trust fund out there somewhere, or you've got siblings that are willing to like take care of you, but essentially you can live with your parents for, or siblings for the rest of your life. And there's a system that's been created out there of dependence, and it's like unnecessary dependence. A lot of these folks are collecting SSI or Social Security. They're getting state level benefits called medical waivers that fund services and behavioral therapies and things like that. There's just lots of things that services that are out there, but it creates this life of dependence. And when greater than 80% of that population is under or unemployed, and they're highly capable, right? And so they're capable, but it's just during the interview process, they tend to get screened out for, behavioral challenges. Maybe they don't make eye contact. Maybe, they just got a couple of quirks, or they're sensitive to bright lights or loud sounds or whatever that may be. But they can sit down and do analyst work or do whatever work is the job that they're applying for. And so 100%. How do you start getting more of those folks in the workforce? So I started really thinking about this in around 2014. And then I joined the local autism society here in Orlando, and there's 85,000 people in Central Florida with autism. And so I joined, the local ASGO board, and I'm like, hey, I'll go join the board. Let me understand this autism thing, and let me see where I can contribute. And of course I get in there and I'm like, okay, let's get Salesforce CRM set up. Let's we're going to create a process for why are you guys begging people for money and charity? We can create a process around this, and I'm going to help you run that. And it was like, okay, dude, chill out. It was it's just a bunch of parents doing the best they can with the resources they had, trying to create opportunities for their kids. These folks don't typically have a sophisticated business skill set. They're not used to growing and scaling businesses or anything like that. And then I was like, okay, well, so I kind of got out of that. I couldn't really add a ton of value with what they had going on. So I started thinking bigger picture. I'm like, what can we do? I was like, well, we need to create a system that can identify very early on, and assess where these individuals are, what capabilities they do have, and map those to roles in the workforce. And then instead of just putting them through their standard K through 12 education and their whatever other therapies they may go through, we also hone in on those individual capabilities and skills and kind of get them ready to be activated in the workforce. So then I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. You can assess and go figure this out. But then there's I feel like there's this issue where employers, whether they say it or not, are fearful of hiring, from this population. Why? Because what if there is an issue and I have to terminate? It's last thing you want to do is be like, oh yeah, to fire the kid with autism. It's okay, I'm going to get sued. And there's this fear of litigation. That's not what, and it prevents good people from making great hires. And so that's an issue. And then on top of it, a lot of these kids lose benefits. So like, let's say they get a job, next week, and they're really excited to get this job, right? Now they're making $40,000 a year. Well, now they don't qualify for that medical waiver and all those benefits are getting through the state. Oh, and by the way, if that job doesn't work out a few weeks from now, like they're back at the bottom of the line, the bottom of the list to get those benefits back. So it could be years before they get them back. So the system is broken, has created this dependence, right? And so at Pathways, we set out to not only do the assessment, but we're going to be the employer of record for every individual on the spectrum. So we de-risk the direct employer relationship. On top of that, so let's talk about an example. So like right now, I'm very focused on recruiting, real estate, and law firms. And so like on the recruiting side, I'm doing discovery with a bunch of recruiting agencies and figuring out where there's pockets of work that someone, that someone with autism could like perform with great attention to detail and stuff like that. And we're creating these custom roles that are financially justifiable. And so on that front, we're going to pay, let's say we're going to charge the company $50,000, for a year for this role. $40,000 will go to the employee, $10,000 will come to the house. And then at Pathways, we're going to provide the job coaches and like all the infrastructure and the resources for it. But additionally, we're going to pass $1,000 out of that $10,000 directly into the local Autism Society that's creating programming. So think about something like the Autism Society of Greater Orlando. They only made I think it's like $480,000 last year, and they had to beg every day of their lives to get that $480,000. Yeah. Now they have 85,000 people in Central Florida with autism. And if I'm passing back $1,000 per hire, they can, with just 400 hires, they can fund, or 500 hires, they can fund their entire annual budget without having to ask for a single dollar of charity.
Wow.
It's incredible when you lay out the statistics like that too, man. 85, it's such a legitimate need in a this huge archaic, slow, independable system, that currently exists. Incredible thing that you all
it's massive. And when you do it at scale and you start thinking about the impact, and I've run all these numbers too, it's like, so when you start creating this population that's earning $0 today and they're consuming a lot, so now you start putting them in the position where they can not only earn enough to fund their own lives, now you're reducing the consumption as well. And when you have 100% of the employable autistic workforce employed, it's a $600 billion a year economic impact recurring. Wow. It is big.
So everything you're doing there, is that with Metra specifically, or how did I saw you update that or talk about that a little bit on LinkedIn. What's your role with them?
Sure. I'll give you kind of the bigger picture there. So I'll give you the bigger picture and how kind of Metra fits into things. So on the Pathways side, services organization, we're going to be employer of record, kind of like a PEO, a little bit of managed services. It's going to be a giant services organization, and we're going to provide all the support and the resources and the job coaching and things like that. We're also going to acquire commercial real estate in all 50 states. So as we start hitting critical mass in certain city centers, we can very easily justify doing custom office build outs and things like that. And then, of course, all of these individuals, not only, so they can now go to an office that's, purpose-built for them and their needs, but they also need other things beyond, just work. Everybody needs to buy a car, and they need attorneys, and they need housing, and they need all these other things. And so we're going to build or acquire all of those entities, for those everyday needs, and make them a part of Pathways. And, at the end of the day, no one person or entity can own Pathways. It's got to be owned and governed by the community, and that's exactly what we're delivering. So everything that I'm talking about building here will be owned from day one by the community and driven by the community. Now, where Metra comes into play. So then as I'm out there, it's let me just give you the picture here. So I'm for the last 18 months, I've been spending 10 hours a week of my time, just learning what exists out there. Are people already hiring hundreds or thousands of people with autism? Are they doing that today? And so I would just say yes to a lot of different meetings. I was meeting with everybody. I mean, attorneys, doctors, universities, people with autism, employers, and just learning what's out there, and there's nothing that exists. You find little pockets of 30, 40, 50 employees, or you might find a large enterprise program that has hired 200, but they're losing money on it. So, which means it's not financially self-sustaining, which means it doesn't fit. We need some things that are financially self-sustaining. So, because if it's not financially self-sustaining, then it's charity, and charity is completely dependent on the goodwill of human beings, which is unpredictable, right? And so as I was doing that research, somebody said, hey, you should go check out this company called Metra, and they created the LinkedIn, but for the neurodiverse, which is this overarching term that includes autism, but also dyslexia and ADHD and other conditions. And they created this marketplace where basically employers can come on and post jobs, and candidates, who are neurodivergent can come on and fill out profiles. And basically they have an AI-powered algorithm that does matching and says, okay, we'll take into account all these candidates' environmental needs, because they have different needs than like your average employee. And we'll do job matching and give employers access to this pool of candidates. And what drew my attention to them was the fact they were the only organization that I saw that got more traditional funding. Like I saw they raised a $1.1 million pre-seed round, last year. And then they just raised a seed round a few months ago. And what really caught my attention was the fact that their lead investor was Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, it's just really cool. But then you hear that and I kind of dismiss it right off the bat. I'm like, oh, right out of the gate, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, Mark Benioff's an investor in my organization. No, he's not. Like some fund that he participates in. But no, that wasn't the case here. Like they went out to Sam Altman's house. They spent time with him in San Francisco. Like they can text him. Like he is very invested in their success.
Incredible.
And it's his only SaaS investment. Like this guy's like investing in like lasers and really cool things. And for him to spend, this kind of timeshare on Metra was really special.
Of course, man. And yeah, no idea that I had no idea even before this conversation that the need was so prominent. And Metra thrown out some of their stats on LinkedIn, which is cool. It's like 1 in every 7 individuals is who neurodivergence represent. That's like 1.13 billion people. And
that's a lot.
1 in 36 are autistic, 1 in 11 ADHD, 1 in 7 dyslexic. It's incredible. So, I mean, the work you're doing is incredibly far-reaching.
It's a lot. And so when I came into that, I wasn't looking for a role anywhere or anything. I came across Metra and I saw these founders. These are really, Connor and Jillica are really young founders, fresh out of college. Jillica had done a TED Talk on the topic, obviously drew some attention and had a bunch of wonderful enterprise pipeline. I was like, hey, let's go talk about pipeline. And it was a little all over the place, right? As you would typically expect of a young startup with founders that don't have prior startup experience. And I just started seeing, I'm like, man, they've got some sick pipeline. I was like, I could do some damage here and and then I started thinking about it, I'm like, why am I not spending like a bunch more of my time doing this? Because like I feel like their success is critical to my own mission, because now they're getting the Fortune 1000 like in there and aware of this problem, right. and getting them like, so the other day Microsoft committed to posting 100% of their open roles into the Metra platform.
Wow.
That's incredible.
That's so freaking cool.
They sent out a team of 30 people to the Metra headquarters, to like this big video crew to like record, the founders, and that video should be coming out next week. But like they really want to see this to become successful. And so now I'm like, okay, well, what if I can come in? What if I can cut a deal with the founders of Metra and say, hey, like, look, maybe I can come in, be your interim CRO. Let's stand up your sales process. Let's make sure, we've got. We figure out our sales cycle together, we get contracting in place, like we have your enterprise strategy like down pat. And now like in the last 30 days, we've created a machine. Like we've got Forecastable up and running the entire operation from sales to customer success. We have, some of the biggest brands in the world are closing like this month as we speak. We closed a couple in the last couple of days. It's just all happening kind of all at once. But it's very tied to pathways too for me. So like for me, the other day I had an employer, a really big brand, on a Metra call say, we want to hire like 10 or 15 people, but we want them to be employed by you. Can you do that? No, we can't, but Pathways can, right? So like there's a way for me to go leverage my services to help them with their business.
I love how all of those things converge and work together. I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand. Someone will look at the different conversations and the different meetings I'm in and the different opportunities that I have within any given week, and it makes their head explode. When you understand that it all is converging into one mission, that all these different pipelines are all moving together into ultimately one goal. Then it all makes sense, and that's really, just hearing that story and the way that all those different pathways are kind of converging, all those pipelines are converging into this one I think that's freaking just awesome.
It's cool.
Yeah.
I've never experienced anything like it. And like next week, I'm doing my very first keynote speech at a conference that I got invited to in Chicago. And I'm going to be doing the closing keynote, and it's with at a conference for partnerships people. And we're going to be talking about passion and purpose and partnerships. So tying it all together with the co-selling and, how we're co-selling at Metra and like all that stuff together. It all ties together.
Are you worried about being able to communicate well?
No, but I've never done a keynote speech. It's different. Like it's different going up there and talking about your product and all the things you've done. And like now I got to like motivate people and inspire them. Apparently,
I think you'll be just fine.
Yeah, it comes out naturally.
I think you'll be just fine, dude.
It is cool to even see the progression from when you initially gave your pitch here to the group, which was, I'm trying to think of when that would have been, November-ish.
Yeah.
Where it's like you were laying out that vision, and now to see it like manifest in such a short time. I mean, congratulations, man.
Thank you.
Cool.
Speaking of, you're still raising capital for Forecastable.
Yes, so I'm going to be raising capital on a few different fronts. So we're still actively raising. So on the Forecastable front, like lots of interesting things happening. Like, I'm considering going down the path of bringing in a new CEO. Like now that I've been, focused on the autism stuff, like every day, like with Metra and with Pathways, it's like it's given me like a different sense of purpose, in the morning. And like frankly, I don't want to sit around and talk about co-selling all day. Like when I can talk about this other stuff, it's just a different feeling. And so like I've been very invested in Forecastable, like, and it is at the forefront of its market. And so I think we're going to go on that. I've already met another, there's a CRO that I've been talking to for a while. He's an advisor. He runs a 400 million ARR business unit within a large cloud security company, 2-time Series A CRO. And I'm talking about bringing him on to be the CEO of Forecastable because he knows that like he's got that voice of the customer like down pat. He can talk to CROs, large enterprise companies all day, 2-time Series A CRO. So, but with that comes obviously he expects to be paid more than I pay myself currently. So
yes,
so we're going to be going out there and raising some meaningful capital. Probably $7 million. And so instead of going through turning ourselves profitable this year and then maybe raising a growth round, I think we're going to go straight VC and we're just going to raise enough capital to get this gentleman in seat. And then I'll just be out there, working on product and evangelizing and doing all that stuff, I would say, for the next 18 to 24 months to ensure my investment pays off. But I'm going to start transitioning into the autism world, essentially.
Phenomenal. That's awesome. And it's I would imagine being able to transition like that and getting more back into your not that Forecastable is not a part of the why, but it's a platform to move you into your why.
Yeah,
I would imagine just for your own mental health and the space that is being used up in your brain, being able to just focus on that one thing that you love so much is going to be. You might get more sleep. Your brain might be able to get shut off a little bit more.
Maybe.
Maybe.
We'll see.
Yeah. That's really, really cool, man. So you're going to be raising capital on that, and are you doing any other raises on these other?
Yeah, so I mean on the so raises for both Pathways and for Rapid Shot. So I have the AI headshot company that is going live here in about 2 weeks. So we're doing a little bit of a soft launch this week, a little bit of manual processing, but that's going to get fully automated. That's just a pure, I think, that's kind of a cash play, I think. I think it is there's a small market opportunity there that we want to go take advantage of. And so we may raise on that front if it ends up being a larger market opportunity, depending on how much business we can close. But there's a B2B play there, and I think we can be doing, $50,000 or $60,000 a month in revenue inside of like a quarter. Like it should be really, really fast.
Nice.
So Rapid Shots we may raise there. And then on the Pathways side, since I said before that organization can't really be owned by anybody else, like I would love to raise there, but it's like people expect a return on that investment. So there's really no equity opportunities available there.
Right.
So I was thinking about going down the path of proving out the model here, showing we can get some of these hires in the door that we're bringing, let's call it $10,000 to $20,000 per role, to the house, and that it's sustainable. And then we may raise debt financing on that. So maybe we can get some investors some faster returns through that mechanism instead of through equity financing. But I do expect for us to do some debt financing of some sort through Pathways pretty soon.
That's pretty awesome. That's great. Yeah, and we definitely need to stay in touch on all of these things because there's a lot of there's a lot of opportunity for people in Florida to do really, really well by investing in a guy like you. and investing in these different businesses. And then also too, there's a lot of folks that we're dialed in with outside of Brevard that I think might want to take a look at some of this as well. So
wonderful.
Yeah, we got to stay going down the path here, buddy.
Alex, give us a little bit of your anatomy as an entrepreneur, man. I mean, what, you're a well-spoken guy, including know so much about your space. Are there certain, is it experience-based that you're building this business acumen? Are there certain, books, literature, mentors that played into who you are today,
All of the above. I wasn't, I didn't read a whole lot. I know a lot of people, they've got a whole library of books and they've read every book under the sun. I never read a sales book before. It wasn't until I was in when after Adobe acquired Marketo and I was invited down to Miami to speak to all these Adobe reps to teach them how to sell Marketo. And
you didn't just read 10X by Grant Cardone and here you are a living, breathing sales machine?
I'd never read a sales book before of any kind.
I thought that's how it worked, Alex.
No, it's not.
I think sales books are boring.
Yeah. It was in that room that the SVP stood up from Adobe, stood up and he's like to the whole room, he's like, this guy is Alex is he's a challenger. I'm like, what's a challenger? And I was like, what's that? And so I went and bought that. That was the first sales book I really read, is because I wanted to know what he said I was.
That's amazing. Man.
But in terms of like I said, the support system is really important. In terms of honing your own skill set, an investment in yourself is really the best investment you could ever make. Yep. And that's something that my father taught me early on. It's something that I took to heart. And so, I just surround myself with really smart people. It's I want to learn from as many people as I possibly can. And so just asking questions and not being afraid to ask questions and surrounding yourself with really smart people is important. Going and learning the things that you want to learn. It bothers me when I can't do something. And I'm like, okay, I want to go learn how to do that. I hate having to rely on other people for certain things. Now that shifts as you start growing. It's you need to rely on other people because you can't do it all. But building that initial skill set is if you don't expect other people to do it if you can't first do it yourself. And that's just kind of the mentality that I took. Is I want to be the best at everything that I did. Mm-hmm. What else? Support systems, books. There's not really any books that kind of come to mind. Learning as much as I can. That's really it. It's constantly learning.
Just being kind of like a ShamWow in all the rooms you're going into. Just trying to pull in all the information.
That's it. And I've seen it, you can get really caught up in your own knowledge, especially as an entrepreneur, and you start seeing so much and you get into rooms and sometimes it's easy to start assuming that you may know more than other people in the room. And that can happen. I've seen lots of other people do it and you can just tell when somebody's they're doing more talking than listening. And so when I get in a room, especially with people I haven't met, I just shut up and listen and quickly kind of determine is this somebody I can learn from or not?
Yeah, incredible. No, that is tragic to watch people stop learning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's just an attitude,
Yeah, there is something really goofy that happens when people stop learning. You start to see, I hope this doesn't happen with me, but when you see people stop learning, you start to see kind of what's been kind of buried right underneath just start to kind of come to the surface even more, and they start to say really stupid stuff. When you stop learning, I mean, there's a point where you start saying ignorant things. I've watched it. I don't know how much application this has, but I've watched it politically. You see it. I mean, even with me, Kelly's my wife. She's super up to date on everything kind of happening in culture, and I kind of keep my head down and I'm kind of doing all this stuff. And I'll say something, and then she'll be like, have you thought about this? Have you thought about it like this? And she's seeing it from all of these other angles because she hasn't stopped learning. And then I'll be sitting in the corner. I'm like, oh, I feel like an idiot. This is whatever. And then it challenges me to go learn more. But yeah, keep learning. Keep learning, everybody.
Alice, how about we got a little bit of the burnout story. Are there other your scrappiest start? We like to ask that scrappiest startup story. Yeah. What comes to mind as far as all-nighters, whatever, in your journey, man?
I've got a lot. I've got a lot. I mean, like let's see, for one of the first startups when we were doing the insurance underwriting stuff, I didn't have any money. I like I said, we had 3 kids in diapers. Like it was, and we had built this really cool like risk modeling product that worked really well. And I had relationships, throughout the industry. And so, my co-founder and I just got in the car and we were like driving around the country. Like, we sometimes sleep at like a truck stop. We were just going from like boardroom to boardroom, like doing demos and, leveraging all my relationships to kind of open up deals, like very different than what I was used to doing. And so I spent like, probably a good 30, 45 days on the road, that year. Before we ended up getting litigation, things blew up. But that was a story of being really scrappy. Let's see. When at the end of that, like I said, when, after litigation, I had spent every penny that I had, every penny I didn't have, So I was like, my wife divorced me, it was like, it was not a good time. I had no money, I had bad credit and all this stuff. And like, that was January of 2016, like that had nothing. And
Wow,
man. In that moment, you've got to say, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And you just have to not give up.
Right. You seem like one of those people that even at I love how you said it. We might have been talking about that with Scott Washburn, where people that have been to the bottom just aren't afraid to go back to the bottom. You know what I mean? In that you don't panic in that scenario, that 2016 scenario.
No, it's like, okay, it'll get better. That's just, I know it'll get better with time, And at that point, I remember I was trying to find a job, and the COO of this company I wanted to go work for, and when he was hiring me, he offered me 2 roles. You can come lead our sales organization or our marketing team. Which one do you want? And I was like, let me start out with marketing, so I don't have quota hanging over my head while I go learn this SAP space. And he asked me, he's like, hey man, your credit's really bad. Are you sure you're good? And I'm like, oh, it was just a startup. Don't worry, I'm good. I'll be fine. And he almost didn't hire me over that.
Really?
Yeah. He's still a friend today. We chat.
Yeah, there is, and I think all of our entrepreneurs watching this, or future entrepreneurs watching this, there's so much that we can learn at the bottom. You start there, and it's likely most people start there, and it's likely you're going to go back there. And I mean, just in our startup journey, because we're still a startup that funds startups. We started this back in November of 2017. And we are still going through those ebbs and flows of great, poof, great, poof, and the pressures and the things that you learn when you are scraping the bottom.
Yep.
It's life altering, life changing, but you learn wisdom there, you learn patience there, you learn grace there, you learn so much there.
Yep.
So that when you reach your goal, you don't forget that stuff.
No, and you appreciate it more.
You appreciate it more, and it reminds you that you're human.
Yep.
And it reminds everyone else, as long as you're humble about it, that you're human.
Yep.
And I think it's I'm believe me, I don't want a bunch of bad days, but I've learned to be to be content and to try and to get through those days with some thankfulness, because there's a great deal of things that you learn about yourself and about the people who are around you in those days.
Absolutely. Yeah, where your real partners are. I now weed out founders differently, co-founders and stuff like that. Just like a marriage. You have to go through tough times before you can really understand, how that person reacts and whether or not they're a good partner for you, right? Yeah. And I walk in every day knowing that good things are going to happen today and bad things could happen today, and likely will. It's just it's going to happen. Okay, something really bad happened today. Awesome. It's going to happen again tomorrow. Yeah. He's figured it out.
Yeah.
No, and we all. The most miserable people to be around are people that are in any kind of a corporate environment. We worked at a big enterprise before this, you know what I mean? It's the employees that whose moods were directly tied to how much money they were making at that moment in time. You know what I mean?
Yep.
If you're around a bunch of other people in sales or something, that's you just don't want to be that guy, And Scott was commenting on the other day. I think you had emailed him about something, Alex, or you and him were emailing back and forth, and like Scott had just said off the cuff, man, it's like, man, this guy, he was talking about you and just the tone of your email. He's like, this guy does not have a bad day. It just doesn't matter.
My wife would give you a different answer on that one.
Yeah.
Right. But it's all just, it's how you handle it. You just can't get too high, can't get too low. It's like you got to maintain that steady pace, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. Lows are low, highs are high.
Yeah, man.
I find that Zoloft helps.
Sometimes you throw some medication in there.
There's some medication in there. Yeah, that's light doses, but it's
Modern science, baby. We love it. You got to ask him the questions, Matt.
okay. Yeah. So we always ask this of our folks that come on to our little program here. Should we call this a program?
Yeah,
podcast.
I think it qualifies.
So it qualifies a program? Okay, we'll call it a program. I really love knowing about people's moral compass, like the thing that, we know the why of your goal, but there's this internal thing that we all have that kind of just drives us, and it's different for everybody. But for you, what is it? What do you live by? What drives you? What's the most meaningful thing to you? And then, second question is, what advice? Which I think, quite frankly, you've already covered this, but just to kind of throw an exclamation point on the end of our little podcast here, our little program here. What advice would you offer to entrepreneurs? So a little two-parter.
Yeah, I guess on the drive side, what drives me is I kind of think about mortality a lot more today than I did previously, and I start thinking about all these things that I want to accomplish, and I know that it's going to take decades to get to everything that I want to accomplish, because I think on the pathway side we could be the largest employer in the U.S. by 2034. And we start thinking about a grand scale, it's a really big thing. When you're employing that many people, and so I start thinking about I could get cancer next month and die within 6 months. I start thinking like that. I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I out here talking about A, B, or C when I could be, accomplishing these other goals out here? What I can't have happen is for me to go away and then nobody tackles this problem. I got to get it figured out. And so that is my drive every single day. Yeah, that's what keeps me going. You obviously can't be walking around talking about hey, I might die tomorrow. That's a really unhealthy place to be. But in general, it motivates me a little bit. And then of course recently I had it happen where in real life, there's a guy I know named Sean Allaire. He's 41 years old, 2 young kids, 4 and 6, and he went into the hospital recently because he had he was feeling nauseous, and he died that night. Was in the hospital and then went into cardiac arrest in the middle of the night and died. Out of nowhere. It's that kind of thing. And then I was reading his obituary, which I was just shocked by. 41 years old, you know? And his wife wrote in there that they found a quote on his phone that says, wake up every morning and say, I get to, instead of I have to. Yeah. And that changes your perspective. And so I get to share my experience with, your audience versus I have to, get up and get dressed and come out here and, and drive and go do these things. And when you switch to that get to mentality, it's kind of a glass half full thing. And so I think when you wake up with that perspective, it changes things.
That's rad. That's wonderful, man.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
And then advice to entrepreneurs, I guess in general, I've got a lot I could talk about, I guess. In general, you start seeing some of these entrepreneurs out there, you see the successes and you see all the stories, and it's quick to think I'm just not I'm not as good as that guy or that woman, or I'll never be that, or you may not know all the things that founder went through to get there. Yeah. And there is a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. Very few wake up, found their company in college, quit college and go create some $1 billion, unicorn. That's not normal. Okay. And it doesn't there's a lot of hard work that has to happen to get there. And so just because you may be feeling bad today doesn't mean you won't be killing it tomorrow.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Killer, man. Alex, thank you for your time and your thoughtfulness and sharing your story, man. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Thanks, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Good night, everybody. Thanks.